Today I'm talking to the New York Times best-selling author of the amazing book, The Davenports, Krystal Marquis.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Miss Krystal. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm so excited for this. It's going to be so much fun.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk about the Davenports.
To start it off, would you mind telling us about your book?
Sure. So, the Davenports is set in 1910 Chicago, and it's a story of four young Black women trying to navigate love for the first time and also their family's expectations with kind of what they want to do when they grow up. So, they're all in their mid to late teens and they're looking for the next steps in life, and they're really excited about it.
It was such an amazing book, and congratulations on the book's success, by the way.
Thank you.
How did you celebrate when you heard the news?
Champagne. I was with my family when I found out, so it was really exciting to be able to share the news right away. Didn't have to go track anyone down. So that was really exciting, and it was really great to share. My mom and I read a lot, and she's read every draft of Davenport. So being able to share that with her, like in the moment, was really, really special.
That's amazing. Yeah, whenever if I ever write anything, I'm like, "Mom, look at this. Can you read it? Is it good? Is it readable? Is it reading worthy?" So I
Yeah.
definitely get that. My mom and I are both huge readers, and we talk. And I'm always like, "Mom, have you read this book? It's so good." The book, I've been comparing it to like Bridgerton.
Mhm.
What was like the inspiration for the book, and when did you start writing it?
So I started writing it, I want to say late summer of 2019. The inspiration kind of came from a picture that I found in an article. It was of this young Black gentleman standing in front of like a vintage car, and it said first and only Black owned automobile company. And I was really surprised. I hadn't heard that that was a thing. So I just started Googling and like researching stuff, and I thought that was really interesting. And I was in the midst of a reading slump, and my brother was getting ready to do NaNoWriMo. And he's like, hey, why don't you write a story about this during NaNoWriMo with me? It'll be a lot of fun. For anyone who doesn't write or maybe doesn't know what NaNoWriMo is, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. And that takes place in November. And it's a 30-day challenge to write 50,000 words of a novel in the month of November. Yes. So it's like a pace of like 1,600 words a day. I did not hit that goal, but I came pretty close. And I got the first draft of like the partial for the Davenports done during that time. So it was like really amazing to kind of take that on and have like a writing buddy.
That's so cool. I definitely, whenever November comes, I want to try that. The Davenports, it covered so much, and it's overall a rom-com, but it does handle like, some serious matters, such as like the civil rights. What was it like juggling those two?
So it was definitely a balancing act because I wanted it to be light and fluffy and fun and have those stories of success that I necessarily didn't find a lot of as a young reader. I really wanted to explore that side of history that's often overlooked, but I also didn't want to ignore or push aside the realities of that time. So it was really fun writing from Olivia's perspective because she does come from this sheltered world where her parents don't really talk about what it was like during slavery and those hardships and escaping and building the wealth that they had. All she knows is being able to go to the shop and buy anything she wanted and having parties and getting ready to do different events with her mom, like on her charity boards. So for her, getting her eyes opened when she meets a civil rights leader and she stumbles upon a meeting, I thought it was a great way to bring readers along with her while she's discovering like this other side that she probably only saw in newspapers, but didn't really hit close to home.
Yeah. Like seeing Olivia learn like more like how you said through the civil rights leader and stuff, seeing her learn more about like the women's rights and civil rights, it felt like we were learning right alongside with her.
Yeah.
Like I said, it ranged from so many different topics, romance, friendships, women's rights. What was like the research like?
So the research was very interesting. A lot of it I found in articles, and I kind of followed one thing to the next. After I saw that picture of Frederick Patterson standing in front of an automobile, like I wanted to learn more. I started Googling him and the family and the business, and everything I found kind of just went into a OneNote. And then when I realized that C.R. Patterson had three daughters, I wondered what their lives were like. So I looked up parties and cotillions, their clothing, their hair. It was kind of like a rabbit hole. I found myself kind of slipping into all these different aspects of their lives, and it was just very interesting. And I think at that time the pandemic was keeping everyone home, so a
Yeah.
lot of museums and libraries put all their materials online, so it made it really easy to go through and find articles and exhibits and just read a lot of history and detail that they had during this time period and about other Black entrepreneurs. It was very interesting. Like, I love research. It's part of why I did this book, is because I had a hard time finding a lot of this information, and I know I can't be the only one that was really interested in what life was like that back then.
I definitely love research. I've talked to some people who are like, it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan of it. And I love it because it helps you like dive a little deeper into like what you're writing and helps you learn like a bunch of aspects of history.
Mhm.
And I've always been a research person myself. Like any essay I have to write or anything, I'm like the research. It's my favorite part. I love it. Is there like a character in your book that you relate to the most?
I started the book really relating to Olivia, mostly because she's the oldest. I'm the oldest of four siblings, and there's like a lot of responsibility that comes with that. So I felt like when I started, I most related to her. But I think while I was writing, I think Amy Rose and I kind of are kindred spirits. She's very much has a goal in mind, and she's very determined and passionate, and she's like working towards that even though there's a lot of obstacles in her way, and it's not necessarily what is laid out for her, because she's a maid at the beginning of the story, and then you see her working towards this goal of opening her own salon and creating her own business and just striking out on her own. And I just thought that was like really inspiring, and I just love how she puts her dreams like at the forefront of what she's doing, and I think that's really great.
Yeah. I definitely I was like whenever she started talking about how she wanted to open her own salon and how she used to like her mom used to do hair and stuff. I was like, "Oh my
Mhm.
god, I really hope she gets to do this because I love this." The
Yeah.
entire time, anytime like a little like there was a little obstacle she had to pass, I was like, "Oh gosh, no." What was your writing like? Are you like a go where the story takes you writer? Or are you like an outliner type person?
So I had a very detailed outline when I started. Um, the story didn't exactly follow that, but I like having an idea of where I'm going next, even though I might diverge. That early draft of the Davenports that I started during NaNoWriMo, there's the biggest change from that draft to like the finished project product was that Olivia and Ruby were not friends. They were frenemies, and they were
Wow.
competitors. They wanted the most eligible bachelors, and they competed against each other. And in my rewrites, I realized that I didn't really like that storyline. I like the friendship so much better. I'm like really happy that I made that change. So like I do have a very detailed outline that goes chapter by chapter, but I kind of, if I feel like the characters are pulling me in a certain direction, I kind of just follow along. Like Ruby was definitely one of those characters who made decisions, and I'm like, okay, great. Now I have to figure out how to get you out of this.
I did love Ruby and Olivia's friendship, so I'm so glad
Mhm.
that you put that in there because I love their friendship. It's very sweet. What advice or like tips would you give someone who wants to start writing or like a new author or something?
So I would say follow your passion, because I found that it's so much easier to write something that you're passionate about, something that holds your interest, something that kind of keeps you going. And also reading a lot. I find that reading a lot kind of helps you see how stories are developed and how character arcs are drawn. And I think that you can learn so much from reading your favorite authors. And
Yes.
it's just, there's so much inspiration out there, and I think that it's easier to do something once you see it. And definitely don't give up. Like, you don't have to do the 1600 words a day NaNoWriMo challenge. You definitely write one page a day. At the end of the year, you'll have a full novel done. But yeah, just, follow your passion and find something that like really drives you, and I think that the words will come.
Throughout the Davenports, the reader never really was sure like who the girls would end up with and which relationships will work out. Like even when I got to the end of the book, I was still unsure about like the outcome. And I know you said like you made some changes from the beginning, but did you have an idea of how the book would end when you started?
I did for some of the pairings. When I first started, the girls were going to I feel like none of the relationships were going to be resolved when I first did it. Sorry. I did resolve one and I'm really happy about that because it was one of my favorite little romances. I won't say who. It was a lot of fun writing the romances and I kind of wanted to emphasize the girls' autonomy. So I think that having them kind of explore what they think a good relationship is and what they want and choosing like the path that's best for them
Yeah.
was a lot of fun to write and really important for me to write. But yeah, I think I had a pretty good idea of how the relationships were going to end.
Yeah. And for anyone who has read the book, you will know which relationship she is talking about. For anyone that hasn't, read the book and you can figure it out. What are you looking forward to? Is there a second book maybe already in the works maybe?
Yes, I am currently drafting book two. I'm really excited for readers to get their hands on it. Yes. It takes place a couple of weeks after the events of book one. So there's a little bit of time jump, but not too much. You kind of get to see the consequences of some of the decisions the girls made, even some of the decisions that John made. And each of them gets like an opportunity to showcase their strengths. So I think that's like really interesting for anyone who's been like rooting for one girl or another to like pursue their dream, like get to see a little bit of that. In the meantime, I'm like really enjoying seeing it out in the world. It's just so amazing that like the story is out there and I'm like so happy that I get to share it with people. So I'm like really just enjoying that as well.
Do you have an idea of when the world gets to see the second book? Maybe?
Uh, I kind of have an idea. Yeah. Maybe sometime next year.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. If you can tell by how like happy I look right now, I'm very excited for this.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy too. I'm really excited for people to see where these girls go next.
And so we do have like questions that readers send in. And so do you mind answering a few?
Oh no, not at all.
Okay.
Right away.
What inspired you to become an author?
That's a tough one, but
Yes.
also an easy one. I'm a big reader. I love stories, and I got into a writing slump early 2019, and I've always kind of dabbled in writing and storytelling, but it wasn't really like this really big push up until like a few years ago. It was just a hobby that turned into something that's so much bigger and better than I could have imagined.
I definitely agree. I've been writing since I was little, but I haven't really
Mm.
started like actually seriously writing up until like I'd say like probably pandemic actually. Another question. What is your favorite quote from the book?
One of my favorite quotes is "Ain't nobody just anything," because
I love that.
I think so for those who don't know, it's spoken by one of the staff in the Davenports house to Amy Rose. And I think that we all at some point in our lives get kind of stuck in where we think we are and what we can achieve. And it's like easy to forget that we're not set in a box, that we get to choose who we are and who we want to be by the decisions that we make and the people we surround ourselves with. So just to remember that like you have the power to change your circumstances. Don't limit yourself and always like try to strive for what you want.
Love that. That's amazing. There was definitely some amazing quotes that I read, and I was like, "Oh wait, I actually really like that." I love that. What is your favorite book that you've read?
Okay, when I was younger, growing up, I would say maybe Alice in Wonderland was my favorite book because I like the whole traveling to an alternate world and the silly limericks and all the colors. It was always so fun reading. And then, as an adult, you kind of see it as like this kid who doesn't want to grow up. That's also super relatable as you get older. As an adult, I really liked Elizabeth Peters novels. So she writes a lot of historical fiction, and her female characters push the gender norms and invade spaces that maybe women aren't allowed in. And they're all super smart and brave. I like romance and I like science fiction. So
I love sci-fi. Why did you decide to go for YA with your debut novel?
I read primarily YA because I like coming of age stories. I like when the character like Olivia gets their eyes open to something that they didn't know was existing, or maybe they're making decisions about their future or falling in love for the first time. I find the stories like very fun and relatable. The pacing is always really quick and fun. It was something that I always really enjoyed, so I kind of wanted to stick to that. I think it's always fun, especially like with the four point of views, having the different girls go through,
Yeah.
that transition from childhood to adulthood was really fun to do.
Yeah, I love multiple POV books, especially if it's like say how because how you had 4 POVs and they all kind of had the same not storyline, but they all were in the same like world because they all interacted with each other. But it was so cool seeing the different sides of like those interactions because you could like one character could take an interaction one way and then
Mhm.
but then you have another POV after it that took it in an entirely different way. And
Yeah,
that's one thing I love about multiple POV books.
me too.
And one last thing,
Mhm.
what do you hope readers take away from the Davenports?
So, one of the things that I hope they take away from the Davenports is to not be afraid to like follow your dreams, to follow your passion. I think the four young women in this book all are very passionate and determined and following their dreams. So I really hope that young readers take from that. And another thing that I hope that they take from it, seeing that it's set in the time period that's often overlooked, that they search for stories that are maybe not as prominent or spoken about, and that they explore more of their American history and, you know, don't be afraid to tell their own stories.
Yeah, I love that, and I will definitely say that you did achieve that. That is exactly what I took away from it. So
Thank you.
I love talking to you. I had so much fun. It was so amazing learning about the world of the Davenports and the amazing author behind it. But thank you so much for being here and taking time to talk to me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated this, and I love talking about the Davenport, so it's my pleasure.
Everyone read the Davenports. It's amazing. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to catch more Read with Reagan updates.